It's day 436. It's also July 15th, 2020, and we are in Fontenelle, Wyoming. You ever wake up in the morning and ask yourself, what am I doing? And more importantly, why? Yeah, me too. Hi, my name's Craig, and this is my story. A story about life out there. For visuals while listening, search Life Out There on your favorite social media platform or use the links in the podcast description. We spent 3 days atop that bluff on Wild Horse Loop, soaking in the view. The Green River, the community that shares its name, and Rock Springs. Some pretty cool stuff. And no surprise that we didn't make it far out of Green River before another spot caught our eye. A quick right off the highway, and we wound our way down into a campground on the banks of the Fontenelle Reservoir. And another interesting story. This one about a project that began as a water reclamation and irrigation project, but it would initially stall out when it was discovered that an irrigation project in the fossil-rich highlands of this part of Wyoming could potentially do harm to the environment. So the project would shift gears, moving forward as a reclamation project only, ensuring that no harm, only benefit come to this unique landscape in Wyoming. The campground is called the Fontenelle Creek Campgrounds, and it appeared nearly abandoned, which is probably why we picked it. Built in the 1970s by the Army Corps of Engineers, with touch-ups here and there more recently, there were just 3 of us here, leaving the other 40 or so sites vacant. And the grounds were overgrown with weeds, and the camp host site was vacant. Only a payment drop box appeared somewhat maintained, kindly asking for us to deposit $17.50 for our one-night stay. Electricity was available, so a peaceful spot with a pretty awesome view to hang out for the night. And I drifted off to sleep wondering if this tattered and lonely-feeling campground in its current state, was this a result of COVID-19 or something more? Budget cuts, maybe? The lack of attention and upkeep certainly felt older than COVID-19, so maybe it was a little of both. And also, a little curiosity around exactly where we were. The phone couldn't really decide between Fontenelle and Kemmer. Easy to understand its confusion. The internet tells me that there is indeed a place called Fontenelle, but with a population of 5, I'm guessing we're seeing pretty much all there is to see of it. Our night here on the shores of Fontenelle was also another example of an area that we'd already passed through. On our initial journey from Washington State through Oregon, Idaho, and further east, we'd actually passed through Kemmer, Wyoming. But the other side of it, I guess, when we'd stopped for that burger and some gas at the truck stop, and then spent the night on that Muddy Creek switchback road. At the time, we had no idea that just a few miles away we'd be sitting here, enjoying the lake, and learning more about this place called Kemmer, Wyoming. A quiet little community of some 2,500, born in 1897, as the country was experiencing significant industrial expansion. Here in Kemmer, named for one of the original financial backers, it would be the discovery of coal that would put this piece of Wyoming on the map. And in later years, oil and natural gas would join the list of economic drivers in the town. And then, the discovery of rich fossil beds in the region would also come to add to its appeal. The establishment of the Fossil Butte National Monument in 1972, over 8,000 acres in a region that some 50 million years ago was home to a massive lake And the lake's calm, oxygen-poor bottom helped to preserve countless specimens. But unlike the Dinosaur National Monument we had just spent so much time in and around, over here, it's not about the dinosaurs. It's about the incredible samplings of fish, the insects, the reptiles, the birds that lived in the region, explaining why the area continues to draw scientists, paleontologists, and even just curious sorts like us from around the world. It's also another one of those places, like so many we've experienced along our journey, that I look across and try to imagine a time when the area was so much different than it is today. A time when a subtropical climate and landscape played host to crocodiles, turtles, countless fish and birds that would all become part of the fossil beds we're looking at today in these high desert mountains of Wyoming. And then, one more click, and another, who knew, discovery. It was right here in Kemmer, in April of 1902. A guy that had worked for successful mercantile supply stores from Missouri to Colorado and Wyoming would pick Kemmer as the site for a store of his very own. He named that store the Golden Rule. He knew that if he understood his customers' needs and treated them as he'd want to be treated himself, the Kemmer community and its success in the coal mining industry would be the perfect place for his very own store. That guy's name was James Cash Penney. And he was right. The mining community in Kemmer did indeed appreciate his honest approach, courtesy, and fair prices. So much so that early success in Kemmer would enable James to begin opening more stores in the region. He honed that keen awareness to his customers' needs and commitment to quality products. And success? Well, that just kept coming for James. His Golden Rule philosophy had led to the establishment of 34 stores across the western United States by 1913. And that same year, James would rebrand the chain and begin calling it J.C. Penney. And the company continued to expand rapidly. Under the leadership of James, the company would continue to focus on quality and customer satisfaction while modernizing the stores and expanding product lines. And at its height, in the late 20th century, J.C. Penney operated over 2,000 stores nationwide and was considered one of the largest and most successful department store chains in the country. It was sorta, ironic? Maybe even weird to read, or be reminded of this success, when I had just learned of the company's bankruptcy earlier this year. I also think the story of J.C. Penney is a perfect example of what happens when a company shifts its focus from quality and customer satisfaction to profit and board member greed. But at the same time, it made me glad that James isn't around to see what happened to his dream. The internet tells me that James never really did retire. He pulled away from the operations a bit in the 1940s, but remained active on the company's board until his passing in 1971, while the company was still growing. I thought, at least James passed away while his dream was still alive and well, long before it fell victim to complacency and let a new retail world pass it by. And there are corners of the internet that speak of a company refocusing on some of those core beliefs, the ones James believed in, and working to find a new way forward. And personally, I kind of hope that somewhere in that 600-store chain of today, there's a belief in James' original vision, and maybe even a rebirth of an American success story. There's a lot of history in this little town of Kemmer. Looks like a place working hard to hold on to that history, remain focused on being the energy provider it is, and simultaneously forging into renewable energy sources like wind and solar. Recent projects in both these industries continue to point Kemmer in the direction of the future. And another random piece of info? Night electrofishing. A term I'd never heard before. A video online caught my eye as the folks from the Wyoming Fish and Wildlife Department launched their boat into the reservoir in the dark of night. And I'd learned that night electrofishing is a technique used by researchers and fishery managers to collect data on fish populations. The method involves using an electric field to temporarily stun fish, making them easier to capture, examine, and then release back into the water. I wonder, kind of sounds like tasing the fish. The electric field is generated using specialized equipment, and the technique is often performed at night because many fish species are more active and easier to locate during this time. The internet also says the method's non-lethal and allows for the study of various fish species without causing significant harm. We awoke alongside the reservoir to a 47-degree morning, and the day would just barely top out at 80 degrees. It was clear that we continued to be the beneficiaries of the shift in elevation in the area, sitting at around 7,000 feet in the air. The mountains, they kind of soften up a bit, losing the jagged peaks we saw around Rock Springs and Green River. The morning breeze swooshes in off those mountains, across the lake and into camp, making for a pretty awesome start to the day. And staring out at all that open land around us, we watched the occasional vehicle pass by on the highway as the sun cast that familiar rainbow of colors across the morning sky, its light reflecting off the lake's perfect, calm, mirror-like surface, just as the moon had the night before. It was like the whole world had been waiting for that morning sun to finally start cutting through the cool air and warming the lake, the land, everything. As we packed up and rolled out for another day, back out onto the highway and further into the northwest corner of the Equality State, we definitely have a direction in mind, but no idea how far we'll get before finding our next stop. But I wonder what we'll learn there. Turns out, this thing called life comes with a lot of rules. Maybe it's time to break a few. Because you can. No, seriously. You can.